You're living someone else's life, their rules, their fears, their ceiling. What if everything you call you is just borrowed armor? Today you choose, keep pretending or burn it down. This book destroys your old self, then hands you the blueprint. 3 questions decide everything. Who built you? Who owns you? Who will you become? Let me tell you about Sarah. She wakes up at 6:15 every morning, hits snooze twice, drags herself to a job she's had for 7 years. She's good at it. Everyone says so. Her manager calls her reliable. Her parents are proud. She makes decent money, has a retirement account. Takes 2 weeks of vacation that she mostly spends recovering from the exhaustion of the other 50 weeks. Sarah is 29 years old and she's already dead. She doesn't know it yet. She still goes through the motions. Still laughs at the right times during lunch breaks. Still posts photos from brunch on Sundays. Still tells herself that this feeling, this hollowness, is just what being an adult feels like. Everyone feels this way, right? This low-grade disappointment. This quiet desperation that hums beneath every conversation, every commute, every Sunday night when the dread starts building for Monday morning. But here's what Sarah doesn't want to admit. She chose this. Not directly, not consciously, but through 1,000 small surrenders, 1,000,000 tiny compromises, she built this cage herself. And then she walked into it. And then she locked the door. And then she threw away the key. And now she defends it. Ask her about her life and she'll list all the reasons why it makes sense. The salary, the benefits, the stability, the sensible path. She'll never mention the cost, the dream she shelved, the person she promised herself she'd become, the life she was supposed to live before she decided to be realistic, before she learned to settle, before she mastered the art of making peace with mediocrity. This is not a book about Sarah. This is a book about you. Because if you're reading this, you're living some version of her life. You might make more money or less money. You might be married or single, 25 or 55. But you know the feeling, that gnawing sense that you're supposed to be somewhere else, someone else, doing something else, that you're playing a character in someone else's story, that the life you're living doesn't quite fit. You know it because you feel it every time you scroll through social media and see someone doing the thing you told yourself was impossible. You feel it when you're alone at night and the noise finally stops and you're left with just yourself and the truth. You feel it in those rare moments when you let yourself imagine what your life could look like if you were brave enough to burn it all down and start over. Here's what we're going to do together. We're going to examine every part of your life that doesn't belong to you. Every belief you inherited. Every identity you adopted because it was easier than creating your own. Every choice you made because someone else expected it. We're going to pull it all apart. We're going to see it clearly. And then we're going to set it on fire. This won't be comfortable. Transformation never is. You'll resist. You'll make excuses. You'll convince yourself that your cage is actually pretty nice, that maybe you're being ungrateful, that some people have it worse, that you should just be happy with what you have. Your brain will do everything in its power to keep you exactly where you are, because your brain doesn't want you to be happy. Your brain wants you to be safe. And change is never safe. But here's what I need you to understand right now, before we go any further. You cannot become who you're meant to be while clinging to who you are. You cannot build a new life on top of an old foundation. You cannot evolve without first allowing something to die. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by trying harder at being a caterpillar. It dissolves completely. It becomes liquid. It surrenders its entire form. Only then can it rebuild itself into something that flies. That's what we're doing here. We're dissolving you. And then we're rebuilding you. And when we're done, you won't recognize yourself. The person you are right now, reading these words, will seem like a stranger, small, scared, settling for crumbs when you could have had the feast. So let's start with the hardest truth. You built your own cage. Nobody forced you into this life. You made 1,000 choices that led you here. Some of them seemed smart at the time. Some of them were driven by fear. Some of them you don't even remember making. But they compounded. Day after day, year after year, each choice narrowing your path a little more, until you woke up one day and realized you were trapped. The architecture of your cage is sophisticated. It doesn't look like a cage from the inside. It looks like responsibility. It looks like being realistic. It looks like taking care of business and doing what you're supposed to do. It looks like all the things that responsible adults tell you are important. Stability, security, consistency, predictability. But here's the trick. Those things aren't values. They're sedatives. They're what you use to numb yourself to the fact that you're not living. You're just managing. You're not building anything meaningful. You're just maintaining. You're not growing. You're just aging. And somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself that this is what life is supposed to be. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you did something that scared you? Not horror movie scared, not roller coaster scared, but real fear. The kind that comes from putting something on the line, from risking failure, from potentially looking stupid, from stepping outside the narrow lane you've carved for yourself and into territory where you don't know if you'll succeed. Can't remember? That's the problem. You've optimized your entire life for comfort. You've eliminated risk. You've surrounded yourself with people who think like you, work like you, dream small like you. You've built a routine that requires nothing new from you. You wake up and already know how the day will go. Same thoughts, same actions, same results. Different date on the calendar. This is why you feel stuck. Because you are stuck. You've created a life that runs on autopilot, and autopilot never takes you anywhere new. Autopilot just keeps you in the pattern, around and around the same loop, wondering why the scenery never changes. The first layer of your cage is inherited. These are the beliefs and identities that were handed to you before you were old enough to question them. Your parents' worldview, your culture's expectations, your religion's rules, your society's definitions of success and failure, good and bad, possible and impossible. You absorbed these things without consent. They became the operating system running in the background of your mind, shaping every decision, filtering every option, limiting every dream. And because you got them so early, you don't even see them as beliefs. You see them as reality, as the way things are, as obvious truths that don't need to be questioned, except they're not truths. They're just the specific set of ideas that happen to be popular in your particular family, in your particular town, in your particular era. Go back 100 years and people believed completely different things with the same certainty. Go to a different country and you'll find people who are just as sure of the opposite. These aren't facts. They're just stories. And you've been living inside a story that someone else wrote. Think about the big ones: money, success, career, relationships. What you learned about these topics before you were 10 years old is probably still running your life right now. If you grew up hearing that money doesn't grow on trees, that rich people are greedy, that you should be grateful for what you have, then you're probably still broke. Or if you're making money, you probably feel guilty about it. Or you're sabotaging yourself right before you break through to the next level. If you grew up watching your parents stay in a mediocre relationship for the kids, then you probably think suffering in silence is what commitment looks like. If you grew up hearing that following your passion is impractical, that you need to pick something stable, that artists starve, then you probably have a practical job that's slowly killing your soul. These inherited beliefs are invisible bars. You can't see them, but you can't get past them. You bump up against them every time you try to do something different. Every time you have an idea that doesn't fit the script. Every time you imagine a life that doesn't match the template you were given. The second layer is adopted. These are the identities and beliefs you took on later, in adolescence and young adulthood, as you tried to figure out who you were. You looked around at the people who seemed successful, happy, confident, and you copied them. You adopted their style, their language, their values, their goals. You tried on different versions of yourself, like outfits, seeing what fit, what got a good reaction, what made you feel less lost. And somewhere in that process, you cobbled together a personality, a way of being in the world that seemed to work. That got you approval. That helped you fit in. That kept you safe from rejection. You learned to be funny or serious, outgoing or reserved, ambitious or laid back. You learned what kind of music to like, what opinions to have, what kind of person to date, what kind of life to want. But here's the problem. You never stopped to ask if any of it was actually you. You just kept playing the character. You got good at it. People started to expect it from you. And eventually you forgot you were acting. The mask became your face. The character became your identity. And now you don't know where the performance ends and the real you begins, or if there even is a real you underneath all the layers. The third layer is defended. These are the parts of your identity that you protect most fiercely because they're how you make sense of yourself. They're the stories you tell about who you are. I'm the responsible one. I'm the creative one. I'm the one who always helps others. I'm the one who doesn't quit. I'm the one who tells it like it is. These stories give you a sense of coherence. They make you feel like you understand yourself, like you're consistent, like you're someone, and you'll defend them against all evidence to the contrary, even when they're limiting you, even when they're outdated. even when they're keeping you stuck in patterns that don't serve you anymore. Tell someone who identifies as the responsible one that they should quit their soul-crushing job and travel for a year, and watch them panic. That would be irresponsible. Tell someone who identifies as a helper that they need to set boundaries and stop rescuing everyone, and watch them resist. But that's who I am. Tell someone who prides themselves on never quitting that their business is failing and they should pivot, and watch them double down. I'm not a quitter. These defended identities are the hardest to let go of because releasing them feels like dying. If I'm not the responsible one, who am I? If I'm not the helper, what's my value? If I'm not the person who never quits, what does that make me? A failure? A fraud? Nothing? So you hold on. You keep being that person even when it hurts. Even when it's costing you everything. Even when deep down you know you've outgrown it. Because the fear of losing your identity is greater than the pain of keeping it. But here's what nobody tells you. Your identity is not you. It's just a story you've been telling yourself for so long that you believe it. And like any story, it can be rewritten. You are not your past. You are not your habits. You are not your history. You are not even your thoughts. You are the awareness underneath all of that. The consciousness that can observe it all and choose differently. Right now, though, you probably don't feel like you have much choice. You feel trapped by circumstances, by obligations, by responsibilities, by the decisions you've already made that have led you to this point. You've got a mortgage or student loans or kids or aging parents or a career you've invested years in. You can't just blow it all up. You can't just start over. You're stuck. Except you're not. You're just comfortable. And there's a massive difference between being trapped and being comfortable. Trapped means you have no options. Comfortable means you have options, but they all require discomfort. They all require change. They all require you to step into uncertainty. And your brain will do everything in its power to convince you that comfortable equals trapped, so you don't have to face the real choice. Are you willing to be uncomfortable in order to be free? Most people aren't. Most people will endure decades of quiet misery rather than face 6 months of chaos. They'll sacrifice their dreams for stability. They'll trade their potential for predictability. They'll spend their entire lives playing it safe and then wonder why they never felt fully alive. Listen to how people talk about their lives. I can't leave this job, I have bills to pay. I can't end this relationship. We've been together too long. I can't move cities, all my friends are here. I can't start that business, what if it fails? I can't. It's always external. Always someone else's fault. Always the circumstances that are preventing them from living the life they want. But it's not the circumstances. It's the attachment to comfort. It's the addiction to knowing what comes next. It's the deep primal fear that if you step outside your cage, you'll discover that you were free the whole time and you just didn't have the courage to walk through the open door. So you stay, and you justify it, and you build elaborate explanations for why your life is the way it is. And you defend your cage like it's a palace. And you get angry when someone suggests you could leave. Because if you could leave, if it really was a choice, then that means you've been choosing this every day for years. And that's too painful to admit. Let me tell you about Marcus. He's 42. He's been working in corporate finance for 18 years. He makes good money. 6 figures. His wife doesn't have to work. His kids go to private school. They take nice vacations. They have a house in a good neighborhood. On paper, Marcus has won. He's achieved the dream. He's checked all the boxes, but Marcus is dying inside. Every day he puts on the suit and drives to the office and sits in meetings where people talk for hours without saying anything real. He's good at the political game, good at saying the right things, good at making his bosses happy, good at playing the character of successful executive. But it's not him. It never was him. When Marcus was 23, he wanted to be a photographer. He was good at it. He had an eye. He could capture moments that made people feel something. But everyone told him that was a hobby, not a career. His parents pushed him toward finance. It's stable. It's respectable. It's practical. So he went to business school, got the degree, got the job, got the promotions, got the life that looked good from the outside, and now he's trapped. The mortgage requires the salary. The lifestyle requires the job. The identity requires the title. He's built a life that depends on him staying in the cage. His wife, his kids, his friends. Everyone knows him as this person. Corporate Marcus, successful Marcus, provider Marcus. If he quits, what happens to all of that? So Marcus stays, and he tells himself it's noble. He's sacrificing his dreams for his family. He's being responsible. He's doing what needs to be done. And maybe that's true. Or maybe he's just scared. Maybe he's using his family as an excuse not to face the fact that he traded his soul for a salary. Maybe he's hiding behind responsibility because it's easier than admitting he gave up. Here's what Marcus won't acknowledge. His kids don't need a private school. They need a father who's alive, who's present, who's modeling what it looks like to live with courage instead of resignation. They need to see someone who honors their gifts instead of burying them for a paycheck. They're learning from him right now, watching him sacrifice himself day after day, and they're learning that this is what you do. You ignore the voice inside you that knows what you're meant to do. You shut it down. You numb it out. You make it small and quiet, and then you pretend it was never there. That's the inheritance Marcus is passing down. Not the private school education, not the nice house, the belief that you betray yourself for security, that you cage yourself for comfort, that you live a borrowed life and call it success. What would happen if Marcus actually did what scared him? What if he sat down with his wife and said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not having a midlife crisis. I'm telling you the truth. This is killing me." What if they sold the house, downsized, pulled the kids from private school, and used that freed-up money to give Marcus 2 years to build a photography business? They'd survive. They'd be fine. They might even be better. Marcus might come alive again. His wife might get back the man she married before the corporate machine ground him down. His kids might learn what it looks like to choose life over death, courage over comfort, authentic struggle over comfortable numbness. But Marcus won't do it, because the cost of change feels higher than the cost of staying, right up until the moment it doesn't, right up until he has a heart attack at 48, or his wife leaves him because she can't stand watching him waste away, or his kids grow up and realize their father was a ghost who paid the bills but never really lived. Right up until the cost of staying becomes undeniable and the bill comes due all at once. You can't outrun yourself forever. At some point, the life you're avoiding catches up with you. The dreams you buried start haunting you. The person you were supposed to become starts showing up in your midnight thoughts, asking you what happened, asking you why you gave up, asking you if the trade was worth it. So let me ask you directly, what are you defending? What part of your life are you protecting that's actually protecting you from your life? What would you do if you weren't afraid? If money wasn't an issue? If nobody was watching? If you couldn't fail? If you had permission to want something different than what you're supposed to want? Because here's the truth, you don't need permission. You just need courage. And courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite the fear. It's acknowledging that you're terrified and doing the thing anyway. It's knowing you might fail and trying anyway. It's understanding that change is uncomfortable and choosing discomfort over decay. The cage you're in has an open door. It's always been open. You've just been too... But tomorrow never comes. Because tomorrow is always today when you get there. And if you're not willing to act today, you won't be willing to act tomorrow. The voice that's telling you to wait, to be smart, to think it through, to make sure you have a plan, that voice will never tell you it's time. That voice's job is to keep you safe, and safe means staying exactly where you are. What that voice doesn't tell you is that staying has a cost too. Every day you don't act is a day you could have been building something different. Every year you delay is a year you lose. And unlike money, you can't make more time. You can't earn it back. Once it's gone, and you don't get a refund. You don't get a redo. You get one life, this one, right now. So the question isn't whether you can afford to burn it down and start over. The question is whether you can afford not to. Can you afford another year of this? Another 5 years? Another 20? Can you afford to wake up at 65 and realize you spent your entire life being who other people needed you to be and never once asked yourself who you wanted to be? I want you to do something right now. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture yourself 10 years in the future. You kept going exactly as you are now. Same job or trajectory. Same patterns. Same relationships. Same level of courage. Same level of compromise. What does that person look like? Are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Are they alive? Now picture a different version. 10 years from now, but you made the change. You burned it down. You rebuilt. You took the risk. You honored what was true even when it was terrifying. What does that person look like? How do they move through the world? What's different about them? Which one do you want to be? Because one of them is your future. You're choosing right now, whether you realize it or not. You're choosing with every day you let pass without acting. You're choosing with every excuse you accept. You're choosing with every time you prioritize comfort over growth. And the choice compounds. It builds on itself. Until one day you wake up and you've become one of those two people. And if it's the first one, the one who stayed, You'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to become the second. Here's what makes it harder. You'll have to burn it down before you know what you're building. You can't have one foot in the old life and one foot in the new. You can't hedge. You can't keep the backup plan warm just in case. Because as long as you have an escape route back to the familiar, you'll take it the moment things get hard. And things will get hard. This is why most people never transform. They want the new life, but they're not willing to give up the old one. They want to be reborn, but they want to take all their baggage with them. They want the caterpillar to become a butterfly without the messy part where it liquefies completely and has no idea what's happening. But that's not how it works. Transformation requires death. Not physical death, but ego death. Identity death. The death of who you thought you were. The death of the life you've been living. The death of the story you've been telling yourself about why things are the way they are. All of it has to go. All of it has to burn. And only then, in the ashes, can something new emerge. This is the part where most people back out. They get to the edge of the void and they panic. They retreat. They convince themselves that maybe the cage wasn't so bad after all. At least it was familiar. At least they knew how it worked. This void, this emptiness, this complete unknown, it's too much. It's too scary. It's too uncertain. So they go back. They pick up the old life. They dust it off. They tell themselves they were being impulsive, that they need to be more realistic, that maybe they should just try to make the best of what they have, and the moment passes. The window closes, and they settle back into the comfortable misery they know. And life goes on, and they tell themselves they made the right choice. They tell themselves that stability is what matters. They tell themselves that dreams are for other people, people who don't have responsibilities, people who can afford to take risks, people who are different somehow, luckier, braver, more talented. Something, but they're not different. They're just willing to sit in the discomfort, willing to not know what comes next, willing to trust that something better is possible even when they can't see it yet, willing to believe that they're worth more than the scraps they've been accepting, willing to act like the person they want to become instead of staying loyal to the person they've been. That's the real difference between people who transform and people who stay stuck. It's not intelligence. It's not resources. It's not talent. It's willingness. The willingness to be uncomfortable. The willingness to look stupid. The willingness to fail. The willingness to lose people who can't come with you. The willingness to stand in the void and not fill it with the first thing that makes you feel safe again. So before we go any further, you need to make a decision. Are you willing? Are you willing to burn it down not knowing exactly what you're building? Are you willing to sit in the uncertainty? Are you willing to give up the identity you've been clinging to? Are you willing to disappoint people? Are you willing to be alone for a while? Are you willing to trade the comfortable death you know for the chaotic possibility of actually living? If you're not willing, that's okay. Close this book. Go back to your life. Make peace with it. Stop complaining. Stop fantasizing about something different. Stop torturing yourself with what-ifs and maybes. Just accept it. Own it. Decide that this is your choice and stop pretending you're a victim of circumstances. But if you are willing, if something in you is saying yes, even though you're terrified, even though you don't know how, even though every logical part of your brain is screaming that this is crazy, then keep reading. Because we're about to go deep. We're about to dismantle everything. We're about to burn it all down. And then, in the ashes, we're about to build something that's actually yours. The first step is permission. You need to give yourself permission to want something different. Permission to admit that you're not happy. Permission to acknowledge that the life you've built isn't working. Permission to say out loud what you've been thinking in the dark. Permission to prioritize yourself. Permission to be selfish. Permission to disappoint people. Permission to change your mind about what you thought you wanted. Permission to walk away from things you've invested years in. Permission to start over. This sounds simple, but it's not. Because you've been conditioned your entire life to not give yourself permission. To wait for someone else to approve. To make sure everyone around you is okay before you consider yourself. To put yourself last. To sacrifice. To be responsible. To think about others. To not be selfish. And all of those things sound noble. They sound like values. But they're also how you end up trapped. Because if you're always waiting for permission that will never come, if you're always prioritizing everyone else's needs over your own, if you're always being responsible in ways that require you to betray yourself, then you never get to live your actual life. You're always living in service of other people's expectations. Let me be clear. This isn't about abandoning responsibility or becoming a narcissist. This is about recognizing that you've over-rotated. You've become so focused on being good, on being reliable, on being what others need, that you've completely lost touch with what you need. You've made yourself so small. You've asked for so little. You've accepted so much less than you deserve. And now you're angry about it, but you're directing that anger at yourself instead of at the system that taught you to betray yourself in the first place. So let's talk about guilt. Because guilt is probably the biggest thing standing between you and the life you actually want. Guilt about wanting more. Guilt about leaving. Guilt about disappointing people. Guilt about changing. Guilt about putting yourself first. Guilt, guilt, guilt. It's everywhere. It's the background noise of your inner life. The constant, low-level feeling that you're doing something wrong just by wanting something different. Where does that guilt come from? It comes from the people who benefit from you staying small. Your family benefits when you play the role they've assigned you. Your employer benefits when you stay in the job that underpays and underutilizes you. Your friends benefit when you stay at their level instead of outgrowing them. Your partner benefits when you don't ask for more or expect better. Everyone around you has an investment in you staying exactly as you are, because your growth threatens their comfort. Your change forces them to confront their own stagnation. Your courage highlights their fear, so they load you up with guilt. They don't do it maliciously usually. They do it unconsciously. They tell you you're being selfish. They tell you you're not thinking about others. They tell you you're being reckless. They tell you you're abandoning your responsibilities. They tell you you're having a crisis. They tell you you're not being realistic. They tell you all the things they tell themselves when they have the same thoughts you're having now. And because you love them, because you don't want to hurt them, because you've been trained to please them, you listen. You absorb the guilt. You take it on. You use it as one more reason to stay. But here's what you need to understand. Their fear is not your responsibility. Their comfort is not your responsibility. Their expectations are not your responsibility. But we have to look. We have to see it. Because you can't change what you won't acknowledge. You can't let go of what you won't admit you're holding. You can't burn down what you refuse to examine. So we're examining everything. No exceptions. No sacred cows. No, but this is different. Everything goes under the microscope. And then you decide, with ruthless honesty, what actually deserves to stay. Let's start with your time. Your calendar is the most accurate representation of your values. Not what you say you care about. Not what you think you care about. What you actually care about is revealed by how you spend your time. So look at your calendar. Look at your typical week. Where is your time going? What are you saying yes to? What patterns do you see? How much time are you spending on work? Is that amount aligned with the role work should play in your life? Or have you let work become your life because it's easier than facing everything else? How much time are you spending on relationships? Are those relationships energizing you or draining you? Are you spending time with people because you genuinely enjoy them or because you feel obligated? How much time are you spending on yourself? On your growth? On your health? On your interests? On doing nothing? Most people are horrified when they actually look at this honestly. They realize they're spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week on work they don't care about. Another 10 hours a week on relationships that feel like chores. Another 5 hours on social media scrolling through other people's lives instead of living their own. Another 7 hours watching television shows they're not even enjoying. They're just numbing out. And maybe 30 minutes a week on anything that actually matters to them. Anything that actually feeds their soul. Anything that actually moves them toward who they want to become. This is the cage. This is what's keeping you stuck. Not circumstances, not bad luck. Your own choices. Your own inability to say no. Your own habit of prioritizing everything except what actually matters. You've given away your time in tiny increments to things that don't deserve it. And now you have no time left for the things that do. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to rate everything in your calendar on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 means this activity is essential. It energizes me. It moves me toward who I'm becoming. It's aligned with my actual values. 1 means this is draining me. This serves no real purpose. This is either an obligation I've accepted out of guilt or a habit I've never questioned. This needs to go. Be honest. Brutally honest. Don't rate things based on what they should be. Rate them based on what they actually are. That dinner with friends that you dread every month? That's not an 8 just because you think you're supposed to value friendship. If you dread it, it's a 3. That project at work that everyone says is important but makes you want to scream? That's not a 9 just because it's work. If it's soul-crushing, it's a 2. Once you've rated everything, here's the rule. Anything below a 7 has to go. Either eliminate it completely or upgrade it. No more 7s. No more okay. No more good enough. No more it's fine. 7 is the deadliest number because it's not bad enough to obviously eliminate, but it's not good enough to actually serve you. 7s are the slow death. They're the compromise. They're the way you end up with a calendar full of activities that are all fine, but none of them are great. And a life full of fine is a life that's fundamentally mediocre. So kill the 7s. Be ruthless. If it's not a yes, it's a no. If it's not lighting you up, it's weighing you down. If it's not moving you forward, it's holding you back. There's no neutral. There's no maintenance. Everything is either building the new you or maintaining the old you. Choose. Now let's talk about relationships. This is harder than the calendar because relationships aren't just activities. They're people. People you care about. People who care about you. People with feelings. People who will be hurt if you pull away. But here's what you have to understand. Not everyone gets to come with you. Some people are in your life because of proximity. Because you went to school together. Because you work together. Because your parents are friends. Because you've always known each other. That's not a good enough reason to keep them in your life. Some people are in your life because of history. Because you've been friends for 10 years. Because you dated for 3 years. Because you've been through things together. History is important. History matters. But history is not a reason to stay in a relationship that's no longer serving either of you. The relationship you had 5 years ago is not the relationship you have now. And if the only thing keeping you connected is the memory of what it used to be, that's nostalgia, not friendship. Some people are in your life because they need you, because you're the one they call when they're in crisis, because you're the one who always helps, because without you they'd fall apart. And you've taken on that role. You've made yourself responsible for their well-being. You've confused being needed with being valued. But being needed is not the same as being loved. Being needed is transactional. Being loved is mutual. If the relationship only works when you're giving and they're taking, that's not a relationship. That's a dependency. And you're not helping them by enabling their dependence. You're hurting both of you. So you need to audit your relationships the same way you audited your calendar. Look at every significant relationship in your life. Ask yourself, does this relationship energize me or drain me? Do I feel more alive after spending time with this person or more depleted? Do they celebrate my growth or feel threatened by it? Do they ask about my life or just talk about theirs? Do they show up for me the way I show up for them? Is this relationship reciprocal or one-sided? And then ask the harder question. If I met this person today, would I choose to build a relationship with them? Or am I only friends with them because of inertia? Because it's easier to maintain the relationship than to end it? Because I don't want to hurt their feelings? Because I'm afraid of being alone? Some relationships need to end completely. You need to create distance. You need to stop answering every text. You need to stop saying yes to every invitation. You need to let the relationship fade. And yes, they'll notice. And yes, they might be hurt. And yes, they might confront you. And you'll need to be honest. Not brutally honest, not cruel, but honest. I'm in a season of change and I need to focus on myself. I care about you, but I need space. I'm pulling back from some relationships to make room for my growth. Some relationships need to be renegotiated. They don't need to end, but they need to change. The friend who only calls when they need something. You can still care about them, but you can stop dropping everything to rescue them. The family member who guilt trips you. You can still love them, but you can set boundaries. The colleague who drains your energy. You can still work with them, but you can stop having lunch with them every day. And some relationships, the rare ones, the real ones, will not only survive your transformation, but will deepen because of it. These are the people who see you clearly, who love you for who you are, not who they need you to be, who support your growth even when it's inconvenient for them, who celebrate your wins without jealousy, who sit with you in your losses without trying to fix you, who respect your boundaries without taking them personally, who give as much as they take, who make you better just by being in your life. Keep those people. Invest in those relationships. Let them know what you're going through. Let them support you. Let them see you struggle. Let them witness your transformation. Because you're not meant to do this alone. You just need to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who actually want you to succeed, not people who need you to fail so they don't have to face their own stagnation. The brutal truth is that when you start to change, you'll discover who was really in your corner and who was just there for the version of you that made them comfortable. And it's going to hurt. Some of the people you thought would be there forever will reveal themselves as conditional, as loyal to the old you but threatened by the new you, as supportive in theory but undermining in practice. And you'll have to let them go, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity, with the understanding that love isn't enough if it requires you to stay small. That history isn't enough if it keeps you stuck. That loyalty to people who don't respect your growth is actually disloyalty to yourself. Now let's look at your habits, your daily rituals, the things you do automatically without thinking. Because habits are either building the person you want to become or maintaining the person you're trying to leave behind. There's no in between. Every habit is a vote for a type of person. Every action is reinforcing an identity. You are who you repeatedly do, not who you think about being, not who you wish you were, who you repeatedly are. So what are your actual habits? Not the ones you wish you had, not the ones you plan to start, the ones you actually do. What's your morning look like? Do you hit snooze or do you get up? Do you scroll your phone or do you move your body? Do you start your day intentionally or do you start it reactively? What do you eat? How do you move? How do you spend your evenings? What do you do when you're stressed? When you're bored? When you're alone? You came here to become fully yourself, to honor what's true for you, to build a life that reflects your actual values, your actual gifts, your actual purpose. And yes, that might disappoint people. It probably will disappoint people. But disappointing people who are invested in you staying small is not a failure. It's a rite of passage. It's how you know you're finally choosing yourself. Think about the people in your life who get upset when you try to change. What are they actually upset about? Are they genuinely concerned about your well-being? Or are they concerned about how your change affects them? Are they worried you'll fail? Or are they worried you'll succeed and they'll have to confront their own inaction? Most of the time when people tell you to be realistic, what they mean is be like me. When they tell you to be careful, what they mean is don't leave me behind. When they tell you to think about your responsibilities, what they mean is remember that your life belongs to us. They're not giving you wisdom. They're projecting their fear. They're trying to keep you in the crab bucket with them. Because if you climb out, they have to admit they could have climbed out too, and that's too painful. So you have to stop asking for permission from people who are never going to give it. You have to stop waiting for approval from people who benefit from your smallness. You have to stop explaining yourself to people who aren't capable of understanding because they've never had the courage to face their own cages. You have to grant yourself permission. You have to become your own authority. You have to decide that your life belongs to you and nobody else gets a vote. This doesn't mean you ignore everyone's input or become an island. It means you stop outsourcing the final decision. You stop letting other people's fear override your knowing. You stop abandoning yourself to keep the peace. You stop betraying your truth to maintain relationships that require your betrayal to survive. And yes, this means some relationships won't survive. Some people will not be able to come with you. Some people will be so threatened by your transformation that they'll try to sabotage it. They'll mock you. They'll undermine you. They'll remind you of every time you failed in the past. They'll predict your failure in the future. They'll make you wrong for wanting more. They'll tell you you're changing in a bad way. They'll say they're worried about you when really they're worried about what your change means for them. Let them go. Seriously, let them go. You cannot carry dead weight into a new life. You cannot build a new foundation while clinging to people who are actively working against your growth. You cannot become someone new while remaining loyal to people who need you to stay old. It's one or the other. You get to keep them comfortable or you get to honor yourself. You don't get both. This is brutal, I know. You've probably spent your whole life trying to keep everyone happy, trying to be a good son or daughter, a good friend, a good partner, a good employee, a good person. You've twisted yourself into knots trying to meet everyone's needs. You've made yourself small trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You've dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel overshadowed. You've succeeded at making everyone else comfortable at the expense of your own life. And now I'm telling you to stop. I'm telling you that the only way forward is through. That you have to prioritize yourself. That you have to disappoint people. That you have to walk away from relationships that require your self-betrayal. That you have to choose you, even when it feels selfish. Especially when it feels selfish. Because here's the thing about selfishness. It's been weaponized against you your entire life. Anytime you wanted something for yourself, someone called it selfish. Anytime you set a boundary, someone called it selfish. Anytime you said no, someone called it selfish. You've been trained to see self-care as self-indulgence, self-preservation as self-absorption, self-prioritization as self-centeredness. But there's a difference between selfishness and self-preservation. Selfishness is taking more than your share at the expense of others. Self-preservation is giving yourself what you need so you don't collapse. Selfishness is demanding that others sacrifice for you. Self-preservation is refusing to sacrifice yourself for others. Selfishness is making yourself the center of everyone's world. Self-preservation is making yourself the center of your own world. You've been living on scraps. nutritionally starving yourself to feed everyone around you. And now you're exhausted, resentful, empty, and people have the audacity to ask for more, to expect you to keep giving, to be confused about why you're pulling back, to call you selfish for finally asking for something for yourself. Fuck that. You're not selfish. You're finally waking up. You're finally realizing that you can't pour from an empty cup, that you can't give what you don't have, that you can't help others if you're drowning, that the best thing you can do for the people you love is to become whole yourself so you can show them what that looks like. Your transformation is a gift to them, even if they can't see it yet. You becoming fully alive gives them permission to become fully alive. You honoring your truth shows them they can honor theirs. You breaking free from your cage shows them their cage isn't locked. You're not leaving them behind. You're showing them the way out, but they won't thank you for it. Not at first. Maybe not ever. They'll resist. They'll be angry. They'll accuse you of abandoning them. They'll say you've changed and they don't recognize you anymore. And you'll have to resist the urge to shrink back down to make them comfortable. You'll have to stand in your truth even when everyone around you is telling you you're wrong. You'll have to believe in yourself even when the people you love most are doubting you. This is the test. This is where most people fold. They get to this point and the social pressure is too much. The guilt is too much. The fear of being alone is too much. So they retreat. They apologize for growing. They make themselves small again. They go back to the cage, and they tell themselves it's fine. They tell themselves they were being dramatic. They tell themselves their relationships matter more than their dreams. And maybe they're right, or maybe they just failed the test. Here's what I want you to consider. The relationships that can't survive your growth were never built on solid ground to begin with. They were built on your smallness, on your willingness to play a role, on your agreement to stay beneath a certain ceiling so they didn't have to confront their own limitations. Those relationships were never actually about you. They were about who you were willing to be for them. And now that you're no longer willing, they're revealing themselves for what they always were: conditional, transactional, dependent on your self-betrayal. Real relationships, healthy relationships, relationships built on actual love instead of need. Those relationships support your growth. They celebrate your transformation. They might be scared for you, might worry about you, might not understand your choices, but they don't try to stop you. They don't guilt you. They don't make you wrong. They trust that you know yourself better than they know you. They give you the space to become. They love who you're becoming more than they cling to who you were. If the people in your life can't do that, they're not your people. I know that's hard to hear. I know you have history with them. I know you love them. I know they've been there for you. But love without respect for your autonomy isn't love. It's ownership. And you're not property. You're a person who gets to grow, a person who gets to change, a person who gets to want something different than what they wanted yesterday, a person who gets to rebuild their entire life if that's what they need to do. So give yourself permission, all of it, every bit of permission you've been withholding. Permission to want more, permission to leave, permission to start over, permission to fail, permission to succeed, permission to disappoint, permission to be misunderstood, permission to be alone for a while, permission to not have all the answers, permission to figure it out as you go, permission to be messy and uncertain and scared and doing it anyway. Write it down if you need to. An actual letter to yourself granting yourself permission. Make it formal. Make it official. Sign it, date it. Read it whenever the guilt tries to creep back in. Whenever someone makes you feel selfish. Whenever you start doubting whether you have the right to want what you want. Read your permission letter and remember, you do have the right. You've always had the right. You just forgot, or someone convinced you otherwise. But the right was always yours. It never left. You just stopped claiming it. Now that you have permission, now that you've given yourself authority over your own life, it's time for the brutal part, the audit. The honest, unflinching examination of everything in your life that needs to go. Everything that's keeping you stuck. Everything that's draining your energy. Everything that's incompatible with who you're becoming. All of it. We're going to look at all of it. And then we're going to decide what survives the burn and what turns to ash. This is going to hurt. Because you're going to realize how much of your life isn't actually yours. How much of what you do every day serves no real purpose. How many relationships are dead weight. How many habits are keeping you mediocre. How many commitments are just obligations you've accepted out of guilt or fear or the inability to say no. You're going to see clearly, maybe for the first time, how you've been. This is where you get to be intentional. This is where you get to choose. Up until now, your life has been mostly accidental. a series of reactions to circumstances, a collection of choices made from fear or obligation or the desire to please others. But this time, you're building from vision, from values, from the clear understanding of what actually matters to you, not what should matter, not what everyone says matters, what actually matters to you when you strip away all the programming and listen to what's true. So let's start with the future self exercise. I want you to close your eyes and imagine yourself 3 years from now. You've done the work. You've made the changes. You've become the person you're capable of becoming. Where are you? What does your day look like? How do you spend your time? Who are you spending it with? What are you working on? What kind of energy do you have? What kind of presence? How do you carry yourself? What's different about you? Don't just think about the external stuff, the money, the career, the relationship status. Think about the internal stuff. How do you feel? What's your relationship with yourself like? Do you trust yourself? Do you like yourself? Are you at peace? Are you fulfilled? Are you excited to wake up? Are you proud of how you're spending your life? Get specific. The more specific you are, the more real it becomes. Don't just say I'm successful. Define what success means. Don't just say I'm happy. Define what happiness looks like. Don't just say I'm doing meaningful work. Define what meaningful means to you. Because success and happiness and meaning are not universal. They're personal. And if you don't define them for yourself, you'll adopt someone else's definition and end up chasing a life that looks good but feels empty. So who is this future version of you? What are their non-negotiables? What are their daily rituals? What do they say yes to? What do they say no to? What kind of people are in their life? What kind of work are they doing? What are they learning? What are they creating? What impact are they having? What are they known for? What do people say about them? What do they say about themselves when no one's watching? Write this down, all of it. In present tense, not I will be, I am, not I'm going to have, I have, not someday I'll do, I do. Because you're not writing a fantasy, you're writing a blueprint. You're describing the version of you that already exists in potential and just needs the actions to match the vision. The more vividly you can see this person, the more real they become. The more real they become, the more your behavior starts to align with that reality. This is not manifestation woo-woo. This is neuroscience. Your brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you visualize yourself as this future person, when you see it clearly enough, your brain starts to believe it. And when your brain believes it, your behavior changes. You start making decisions from that identity instead of from your current circumstances. You start acting like the person you're becoming instead of like the person you've been. And that's how transformation happens, not through willpower, through identity shift. So you've described the future you. Now let's reverse engineer it. What would that person's day look like? Start to finish. From the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep. What's their morning routine? Do they hit snooze or jump out of bed? Do they check their phone immediately or do they give themselves space? Do they move their body? Do they feed their mind? Do they set intentions for the day? Or do they just react to whatever comes up? What about work? What are they working on? How much time are they spending on it? Are they working for someone else or for themselves? Are they building something, creating something, serving in some way? What's the quality of their work? Are they doing their best or just getting by? Are they growing or maintaining? Are they challenged or bored? What's their relationship with money? Are they stressed about it or are they abundant? Are they conscious of their spending or are they reckless? What about relationships? Who are they spending time with? What kind of conversations are they having? Are they surrounded by people who energize them or drain them? Are they giving as much as they're taking? Are they present in their relationships or are they distracted? What about their intimate relationship? Do they have one? What does it look like? Is it deep or surface? Is it growing or stagnant? Is it a priority or an afterthought? What about their health? How do they treat their body? Do they see it as a temple or a trash can? Do they move regularly? Do they eat with intention? Do they sleep well? Do they have energy or are they exhausted all the time? What's their relationship with stress? Do they manage it or does it manage them? Do they have practices that regulate their nervous system, or are they constantly in fight or flight? What about their mind? What are they reading? What are they learning? What are they curious about? Are they growing intellectually, or are they stagnant? Do they consume content intentionally, or do they just scroll whatever the algorithm feeds them? Do they think for themselves, or do they adopt other people's opinions? Are they awake, or are they asleep? What about their spirit? Do they have a practice, a way of connecting to something larger than themselves? Do they make time for stillness, for reflection, for meaning? Or are they just grinding, just hustling, just doing without ever asking why? What gives their life significance? What are they in service of? What legacy are they building? What will people say about them when they're gone? Once you have this vision, once you can see this future day clearly, here's what you do. You start living it now. Not in 3 years. Now. You identify the behaviors that future version of you does every day, and you start doing them today. You don't wait until you feel like that person. You don't wait until the circumstances are perfect. You don't wait until you have permission or confidence or clarity. You just start acting like them. And gradually, through the repetition of those actions, you become them. This is the secret. You don't build the life and then become the person. You become the person and then you build the life. The life is the result. The person is the cause. So you focus on becoming, on embodying the qualities of the future you, on making decisions from that identity, on showing up as that person even when it feels like you're faking it. Because at first, you are faking it. You're acting. You're trying on a new way of being. But if you do it consistently enough, the acting becomes real. The mask becomes your face. The performance becomes your personality. And one day you wake up and realize you're not pretending anymore. You actually are that person. The future you and the present you have merged. And the life you imagined is the life you're living. But you need systems. You need structure. You need a way to translate the vision into daily action. Because vision without execution is just a dream. Execution without vision is just busy work. You need both. You need to see clearly where you're going, and you need a plan for how to get there one day at a time. So let's build your operating system, your personal set of rules and rituals and routines that create the conditions for your transformation. Think of this like the architecture of your new life, the foundation that everything else is built on, the non-negotiables that you'll defend no matter what. The structure that keeps you on track when motivation fades and discipline is all you have left. Start with your core values. Not the values you think you should have, not the values that sound good, the values that are actually true for you, the things that, if you violated them, you'd feel fundamentally out of integrity. Most people have never actually identified their values. They just operate from whatever they absorbed growing up. But if you want to build a life that's actually yours, you need to know what you stand for. So ask yourself, what matters most to me? When I'm at the end of my life looking back, what will have made it meaningful? What am I not willing to compromise on? What do I want to be known for? What kind of impact do I want to have? What kind of person do I want to be? Not do, be. Because doing flows from being. And if you get the being right, the doing takes care of itself. Let's say your core values are growth, creativity, service, authenticity, and freedom. Those are your North Stars. Every decision you make should be filtered through those values. Does this choice align with growth? Does it honor my creativity? Does it allow me to serve? Can I be authentic in this situation? Does it give me freedom, or does it trap me? If the answer to most of those questions is no, you don't do it. You say no. You protect your values. Because your values are your identity. They're who you are. And every time you violate them, you betray yourself. You erode the self-trust you've been working so hard to build. Now let's talk about your daily operating system, the rituals and routines that structure your day, because structure creates freedom. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. When you have a solid routine, when you have non-negotiables that you do every day regardless of how you feel, you Free up mental energy for the things that actually require creativity and decision-making. You're not wasting willpower on whether to work out or what to eat or when to do your important work. You've already decided. It's automatic. It's just what you do. Your morning is the most important part of your day. Win the morning, win the day. So design a morning ritual that sets you up for success. Maybe it's waking up at the same time every day. No snooze. So you protect that time. You turn off notifications. You close the door. You tell people you're unavailable. You treat it like it's sacred. Because it is. That's where your transformation happens. That's where you build the skills. That's where you create the value. That's where you become the person you're trying to become. Everything else is maintenance. Everything else is support. But those deep work hours, that's the core. Then let's talk about your relationships. You need to be intentional here too. You need to schedule time for the people who matter. Not just hope it happens. Not just squeeze them in when you have time. But actually put it on the calendar. Weekly dinner with your partner. Monthly hangout with your best friends. Quarterly visits with family. Whatever it is, you make it non-negotiable. Because relationships are like plants. They need consistent care. They need attention. They need time. And if you're always putting them off, always saying you're too busy, always choosing work or solo pursuits over connection, they wither. And then one day you wake up and realize you're successful but alone. You've built the career but lost the people. And that's not the trade you wanted to make. So you protect your relationships. You show up. You're present. You put the phone down. You have real conversations. You go deep. You don't just catch up on surface stuff. You actually connect. You ask questions. You listen. You share. You're vulnerable. You're real. And those relationships become the bedrock of your life. They become what makes everything else worth it. Now let's talk about your evening. This is where most people fail. They do well all day and then they blow it at night. They're exhausted from work. They're depleted. They just want to numb out. So they scroll social media for 2 hours, or watch Netflix for 4 hours, or drink to take the edge off, or eat garbage because they're too tired to cook. And they wake up the next morning feeling even worse than they did yesterday, and the cycle continues. But what if you treated your evening as intentionally as your morning? What if instead of collapsing, you had a wind-down ritual? What if you spent the last hour of your day preparing for the next day? You review what you accomplished. You plan tomorrow. You set out your clothes. You prep your breakfast. You read something that feeds your mind. You do something that brings you peace. You go to bed at a reasonable time instead of staying up scrolling because you don't want the day to end, even though you hated most of it. Small changes. Simple rituals. But they compound. They add up. They become the difference between a life that's lived intentionally and a life that's lived on autopilot. Between a life where you're in control and a life where you're just reacting. Between a person who's becoming and a person who's stuck. This is your operating system. Your blueprint for how to live. And you don't have to follow it perfectly. You're not a robot. You're a human. You'll have bad days. You'll skip workouts. You'll eat the wrong thing. You'll stay up too late. You'll get distracted. You'll fall off track. But the system is there to return to. It's there to guide you back. It's there to remind you who you're becoming and what you're building. It's the rails that keep you moving in the right direction, even when you don't feel like it. Now let's talk about the resistance. Because just when you start making progress, just when you start to believe that change is possible, that's when the resistance shows up. That's when your old patterns kick in. That's when your brain starts sabotaging you. That's when you inexplicably start to blow it all up, right when you're about to break through. This is not random. This is not bad luck. This is your immune system, your psychological immune system. And just like your physical immune system attacks foreign invaders, your psychological immune system attacks foreign identities, new versions of you, changes to who you are. Because your brain sees those changes as threats, as dangerous, as something to be eliminated so you can return to homeostasis, to the familiar, to the safe version of you, even if that version was miserable. So right when you're about to level up, right when you're about to hit a goal, right when you're about to become someone new, your brain panics, and it finds a way to sabotage. Maybe you pick a fight with your partner. Maybe you blow off your workout for a week. Maybe you binge eat. Maybe you stay up late scrolling. Maybe you make a stupid decision that sets you back. Maybe you quit right before the breakthrough. And then you wonder why you keep doing this. Why you can't seem to stick with anything. Why you always fail right when success is within reach. It's not that you're broken. It's that you have a hidden commitment to staying who you've been. A subconscious belief that if you change, something bad will happen. Maybe you'll outgrow your friends. Maybe you'll threaten your partner. Maybe you'll have to face new challenges you're not ready for. Maybe success means more responsibility and you're already overwhelmed. Maybe deep down you don't think you deserve it. Maybe you're afraid that if you succeed, you'll discover that success doesn't fix you and then you'll be out of excuses. So you sabotage. Unconsciously. Automatically. You create the failure you're afraid of, so at least you're in control of it. So at least it's familiar. So at least you can tell yourself you knew this would happen, that you're not cut out for this, that maybe you should just accept your limitations and stop trying. But here's the thing. Once you see the pattern, once you recognize your specific sabotage signature, you can interrupt it. You can catch yourself in the act. You can say, oh, this is the thing I do. This is how I fail. This is the story I tell myself right before I quit. And just by seeing it, you create space. You create choice. You can choose differently. You can override the pattern. So what's your sabotage signature? How do you specifically derail yourself? Do you get sick right before important events? Do you create drama in your relationships when things are going well? Do you overspend when you're making progress on your finances? Do you party when you're trying to get healthy? Do you pick up new projects when you should be finishing old ones? Do you suddenly decide you don't want the thing right when you're about to get it? Do you become paralyzed by perfectionism right when you should be shipping? Do you convince yourself it's not the right time, it's not good enough, it's not going to work? Whatever your pattern is, write it down. Make it explicit. And then the next time you feel that urge, that familiar pull toward the behavior that you know will derail you, you pause. You breathe. You ask yourself, is this actually what I want to do? Or is this the sabotage? Is this me making a conscious choice? Or is this my immune system trying to keep me small? And if it's the sabotage, you make a different choice. You override it. You do the opposite. You lean into the discomfort instead of running from it. You keep going instead of quitting. You stay on track instead of blowing it up. And you prove to yourself that the pattern can be broken, that you're not destined to repeat it forever, that you have agency, that you can choose. This is the work. This is what separates people who transform from people who just talk about transforming. The people who transform are the ones who see the resistance, who feel the pull to quit, who hear all the reasons why they should stop, and they keep going anyway. They don't wait until it feels easy. They don't wait until the fear goes away. They don't wait until they're confident. They just keep showing up, day after day, action after action, even when they don't feel like it. Especially when they don't feel like it. Because here's what nobody tells you. It's never going to feel easy. Transformation is always uncomfortable, always uncertain, always requiring you to act before you're ready, always demanding more than you think you can give. But the discomfort changes. At first, it's the discomfort of being in a life you hate. Then it's the discomfort of change, of uncertainty, of not knowing, of being between identities. And eventually, if you stick with it, it becomes the discomfort of growth, of expanding beyond what you thought was possible, of becoming more than you were. And that discomfort is sweet. That discomfort is the signal that you're alive, that you're evolving, that you're not settling, that you're honoring yourself and what you're capable of. So you learn to love the resistance. You learn to expect it. You learn to see it as proof that you're on the right path. Because if it was easy, everyone would do it. If it didn't require you to face your fears and override your patterns and keep going when every fiber of your being wants to quit, then it wouldn't be transformation. It would just be change. And change is easy. Change is switching jobs. Change is moving cities. Change is getting a new haircut. Transformation is becoming a fundamentally different person. Transformation is rewiring your brain. Transformation is dying and being reborn. And that's never easy, but it's always worth it. Now let's talk about the people in your life and how they're going to react to your transformation, because they're not all going to be supportive. Some of them are going to resist. Some of them are going to be confused. Some of them are going to be angry. And you need to be prepared for that. You need to know how to navigate it. Because if you're not prepared, their resistance will become your excuse to quit. Here's what happens. You start to change. You start making different choices. You start saying no to things you used to say yes to. You start prioritizing yourself instead of them. You start having boundaries. You start being less available. Sometimes they do this gently. They express concern. They tell you they're worried about you. They ask if you're okay. They suggest that maybe you're going through something. Maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should think about this more. Maybe you're being impulsive. They mean well, probably. They genuinely think they're helping. But what they're actually doing is trying to manage their own anxiety about your change by getting you to stop changing. Sometimes they do it more aggressively. They mock you. They criticize you. They tell you you're being selfish. They tell you you've changed and not in a good way. They remind you of all your past failures. They predict your future failure. They tell you you're being unrealistic. They tell you you're not being yourself, by which they mean you're not being the version of yourself that serves them. And sometimes they do it through withdrawal. They just pull away. They stop calling. They stop inviting you. They make it clear that if you're going to be this new person, they're not interested. They'd rather have no relationship with you than have a relationship with someone they don't recognize. All of this is painful. All of this is going to trigger your deepest fears. Your fear of abandonment. Your fear of being alone. Your fear of being misunderstood. Your fear of being wrong. Your fear that maybe they're right and you are being foolish and you should just go back to how things were. But here's what you need to remember. Their reaction is not about you. It's about them. It's about their fear. It's about their discomfort. It's about what your change means for their life. And you can have compassion for that. You can understand that it's hard for them. That change is always hard, even when it's someone else's change. But you can't let their discomfort become your reason to stop growing. You can't sacrifice your transformation to maintain their comfort, because that's the trade you've been making your whole life. And that's the trade that got you here. That's the trade that built the cage. And you're done making that trade, so how do you handle it? First, you stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to get them to understand. You stop needing their approval. You stop justifying your choices. Because the more you explain, the more you open yourself up to their resistance. The more you try to convince them, the more you give them opportunity to convince you back. You're not asking permission. You're not seeking validation. You're informing them. This is what I'm doing. This is who I'm becoming. You're welcome to come with me, but I'm going either way. Second, you set boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries. If someone is being unsupportive, you tell them, this doesn't work for me. I need support, not criticism. If you can't support me, I need some space. And then you enforce it. You don't keep engaging with someone who's undermining you. You don't keep showing up for someone who's trying to keep you small. You protect your transformation. You protect your energy. You protect your focus. And if that means some relationships go dormant for a while, so be it. Third, you find new people. People who are where you're going, not where you've been. People who are also growing. People who celebrate your wins instead of feeling threatened by them. People who challenge you to be better instead of enabling you to stay stuck. People who see your potential and reflect it back to you. These people exist. You just haven't been looking for them because you've been so focused on maintaining your old relationships. But now you need to actively seek out new community. Join groups. Go to events. Put yourself in rooms where growth-oriented people gather. Find your new tribe. The people who will become your support system for this next chapter. And finally, you trust that the right people will stay and the wrong people will leave. That the relationships that are meant to survive your transformation will survive it. That the people who really love you will find a way to adjust. They might need time. They might be confused at first. But if the relationship has a real foundation, if it's built on actual love instead of need, it'll weather the change. It'll evolve. It'll deepen. And the relationships that can't survive, they were never going to last anyway. They were contingent on you staying stuck. And those relationships, as hard as it is to admit, need to end. Not with drama, not with burning bridges, but with honest acknowledgement that you're going in different directions and that's okay. That you can love someone and still not be able to be in relationship with them. That sometimes love means letting go. So yes, some people will leave. Yes, it will hurt. Yes, you will feel alone at times. But the aloneness is temporary. The transformation is permanent. And on the other side of it, you'll find people who actually see you. People who love the real you, not the diminished version. People who make you better just by being in your life. Those are the people worth having. Those are the relationships worth building. And you won't find them until you let go of the relationships that were never meant to last. Now let's talk about money. Because money is probably the biggest excuse people use for not transforming. I can't leave my job, I need the money. I can't start a business, I don't have the capital. I can't take time off, I have bills to pay. I can't invest in myself, I'm already broke. Money, money, money. It's always the reason, the insurmountable obstacle. The thing that makes transformation impossible. But here's the truth. Money is not the obstacle. Fear is the obstacle. And money is just the socially acceptable way to express that fear. Because if you say, I'm too scared to change, people will judge you. But if you say, I can't afford to change, people nod sympathetically. They understand. They're in the same boat. They use the same excuse. So it's safe. It's acceptable. It doesn't require you to face the real issue. The real issue is that you've trapped yourself financially. You've created a lifestyle that requires your current income. You've taken on debt. You've made commitments. You've built a life that depends on the very thing that's killing you. And now you can't leave because you need the money. But you didn't have to build it this way. You made choices. And those choices prioritized comfort over freedom, stuff over flexibility, appearance over authenticity. You bought the house you couldn't really afford. You bought the car you didn't really need. You took the vacations on credit. You kept up with the Joneses. You spent to soothe yourself. You used money to fill holes that money can't fill. And now you're stuck. Not because money is the problem, but because you use money to build a cage. And now that cage requires you to make money. And so you're trapped in a job you hate, in a life you don't want, because you need to maintain the lifestyle you bought to distract yourself from the fact that you were miserable. So let's get honest about money. How much do you actually need? Not how much do you make? Not how much do you spend? How much do you actually need to survive? To cover your basics? Housing, food, utilities, transportation, insurance. What's that number? For most people, it's way less than they think, way less than they make, way less than they spend. Because most of what they spend is optional. It's wants, not needs. It's lifestyle, not survival. So calculate your bare minimum, your freedom number, the amount of money you need to live a simple, comfortable life without any of the excess. And then ask yourself, could I make that amount doing something I actually care about? Could I downsize? Could I eliminate the things that are expensive but not actually making me happy? Could I live with less so I could have more freedom? Could I trade the big house for the small apartment? The fancy car for the reliable used one? The expensive vacations for the simple pleasures? The appearance of success for the reality of peace? Most people say no. They say they can't downsize. They say they need what they have. But what they really mean is they don't want to let go. They don't want to admit that they've been chasing the wrong things. They don't want to face the judgment of people who see downsizing as failure. They don't want to give up the identity that comes with the stuff. They don't want to be seen as less successful, less together, less adult. But what if downsizing isn't failure? What if it's the smartest thing you could do? What if simplifying your life is actually what gives you the runway to transform? What if having less stuff means having more time, more energy, more focus, more freedom? What if the things you've been working so hard to acquire and maintain are actually the anchors keeping you stuck? This is the money problem. Not that you don't have enough, but that you've structured your life to require too much. And now that structure is your prison. But here's the good news. You built it, which means you can unbuild it. You can sell the house. You can sell the car. You can pay off the debt. You can cut the expenses. You can create breathing room. You can give yourself the financial space to make different choices, to take risks, to pursue the thing you actually want instead of the thing that pays the most. This doesn't mean you have to become a minimalist or live in a van or eat rice and beans. It means you need to be intentional about money. You need to decide what your relationship with money is going to be. Is money a tool that serves your transformation? Or is money the master that keeps you trapped? Because it can't be both. Either you control your money or your money controls you. Either you use money to buy freedom or you use money to buy stuff. And stuff never buys freedom. Stuff always requires more money, more maintenance, more time, more energy. Stuff is the opposite of freedom. So you build the runway first. You create the safety net, even if it takes a year. Even if it means sacrificing now. Even if it means not going out, not buying things, not taking trips, not keeping up appearances. You make the short-term sacrifice for the long-term freedom. You delay gratification now so you can have actual gratitude later. You choose freedom over comfort, future over present, possibility over security. And once you have that runway, once you have those 6 months, everything changes. Because now you have options. Now you can make choices from possibility instead of from fear. Now you can say yes to the thing that scares you because you know you have time to figure it out. Now you can leave the job that's killing you because you know you can survive while you build something better. Now money is no longer the excuse. Now the only thing standing between you and your transformation is you. So let's talk about your first wins, your proof of concept. Because belief without evidence is just hope. And hope is not a strategy. You need proof. You need to see, in concrete terms, that this is working, that you're actually changing, that the person you're becoming is real, not just a fantasy. You need data points that you can look at when the doubt creeps in, when the resistance gets loud, when people question you. You need to be able to point to something and say, see, this is different. I'm different. It's working. So how do you generate these wins? You start small. You pick something measurable, something you can track, something that has clear before and after, and you focus on moving that metric. Maybe it's your morning routine. You commit to waking up at the same time and following your ritual for 30 days straight, and you track it. Every day you do it, you mark it down, and at the end of 30 days, you have proof. 30 marks. 30 days of kept promises. 30 days of building self-trust. That's a win, or maybe it's your body. You commit to moving every day for 60 days. Doesn't matter what. Walking, running, lifting, stretching, whatever. You just move, and you track it. And you take photos, before and after, and you track how you feel. Energy levels, mood, sleep quality. And at the end of 60 days, you can see the difference. You can feel the difference. You look different. You have more energy. You sleep better. You're more present. That's a win, or maybe it's your finances. You commit to tracking every dollar you spend for 90 days. Every single one. And you cut out one unnecessary expense each week. And you put that money into your freedom fund. And at the end of 90 days, you've saved significant money. You've changed your relationship with spending. You've proven to yourself that you can control your finances instead of letting your finances control you. That's a win, or maybe it's your work. You commit to 2 hours of deep work every day for 100 days. And you track what you create, what you accomplish, what you learn, what you build. And at the end of 100 days, you've created something. A project, a skill, a portfolio, a product. Something tangible that wouldn't exist if you hadn't done the work. That's a win. The specific win doesn't matter. What matters is that you choose something, you commit to it, you do it consistently, and you document the progress. Because the documentation is what makes it real. The tracking is what turns the vague sense of maybe I'm changing into the concrete proof of yes, I've changed. Look at the evidence. Look at the data. Look at the before and after. This is real. This is happening. I'm doing it. And every time you have a win, no matter how small, you celebrate it. You don't just move on to the next thing. You don't just raise the bar immediately. You pause. You acknowledge what you did. You let yourself feel proud. You let yourself enjoy the moment. Because these wins are fuel. They're what keep you going when things get hard. They're what you look back on when you're doubting yourself. They're what prove to you that you're capable, that you can do hard things, that you can keep promises to yourself, that you're becoming someone different. And as the wins accumulate, as the evidence builds, something shifts. You start to believe it. You start to see yourself differently. You start to carry yourself differently. You start to make decisions from confidence instead of from fear. You start to expect success instead of preparing for failure. You start to act like the person you're becoming because you have proof that you're becoming them. And that shift, that internal shift from I'm trying to be this person to I am this person, that's when everything accelerates. That's when transformation becomes inevitable, because now you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're not overriding your identity. You are your identity. The new habits aren't hard because they're just what you do. The new choices aren't scary because they're aligned with who you are. The new life isn't foreign because it's the natural result of who you've become. You've closed the gap. The future you and the present you have merged. And now you're just living, just being, just existing as this new version. And it feels normal. It feels right. It feels like home, but you're not done. Because transformation isn't a destination. It's a practice. It's a way of being. You don't transform once and then maintain forever. You transform continuously. You keep growing. You keep evolving. You keep becoming. Because the moment you stop growing, you start dying. The moment you decide you've arrived, you start declining. The moment you get comfortable, you start settling. And settling is what got you here in the first place. So you have to protect your edge. You have to keep challenging yourself. You have to keep asking, what's next? What's the next version? What's the next level? What am I capable of that I haven't tried yet? What scares me now that I should be moving toward? Where am I playing it safe? Where am I getting comfortable? Where am I starting to settle? And when you find those places, you burn them down too. You disrupt your own comfort. You challenge your own assumptions. You keep yourself in the growth zone. Not in panic, not in overwhelm, but in that sweet spot where you're stretched but not broken, where you're uncomfortable but capable, where you're scared but doing it anyway. That's where you live now. That's your new home. The edge, the frontier, the place where you're becoming. And the beautiful thing is, the more you do this, the better you get at it. Transformation becomes a skill. Change becomes familiar. Uncertainty becomes comfortable. You develop a tolerance for discomfort that most people never build. You develop a trust in yourself that's unshakable. You develop a knowing that no matter what happens, no matter what changes, no matter what falls apart, you'll figure it out. You'll adapt. You'll evolve. You'll be okay. Because you've done it before. You've burned down your life and rebuilt it. And you can do it again. And again. And again. As many times as necessary. This is what it means to burn the old you. Not once, but continuously. To keep letting go of who you were so you can become who you're meant to be. To keep shedding identities that no longer fit. To keep releasing relationships that no longer serve. To keep changing your mind about what you thought was true. To keep being willing to be wrong, to start over, to try something new, to fail, to get back up, to keep going. To keep choosing life over comfort. Growth over stagnation. Courage over fear. Truth over performance. Becoming over being. This is your life now. This is who you are. Someone who burns and rebuilds. Someone who dies and is reborn. Someone who never stops becoming. Someone who refuses to settle. Someone who honors what's true even when it's hard. Someone who chooses themselves even when it's scary. Someone who builds a life that's actually theirs instead of living in a life that was handed to them. You will not recognize yourself in 12 months. You won't. The person you are today, reading these words, sitting in whatever situation you're sitting in, feeling whatever you're feeling, that person will seem like a stranger, small, limited, playing so small, settling for so little, accepting so much less than they deserved. And you'll look back with compassion, with love, with gratitude, because that person was necessary. That person brought you here. That person had to exist so you could become who you are now. But that person is gone. That person burned. That person became ash so you could rise. The old you is dead. And it should be. It needed to die. It was killing you slowly. It was suffocating you. It was stealing your life one day at a time. And you let it happen. Until you didn't. Until you woke up. Until you decided that enough was enough. Until you chose to burn it all down and build something real. Something yours. Something that makes you feel alive. This is your beginning. This is your genesis. This is the moment everything changes. Not because the circumstances changed, but because you changed. Because you chose to honor what's true. Because you granted yourself permission. Because you let go of who you were. Because you stepped into the void. Because you built from vision instead of from fear. Because you became the person you've been trying to become your whole life. You are unrecognizable now. Not to others, not yet, but to yourself. You see yourself differently. You know yourself differently. You trust yourself differently. You love yourself differently. And that changes everything. Because when you change your relationship with yourself, your relationship with everything else changes. Your work changes. Your relationships change. Your health changes. Your finances change. Your entire experience of being alive changes because you're no longer living someone else's life. The cage is open. The match is lit. The old you is burning. And from the ashes, you're rising. Someone new, someone real, someone who knows who they are and what they're here to do. Someone who refuses to live small. Someone who refuses to settle. Someone who refuses to betray themselves ever again. Someone who has burned and rebuilt and risen. Welcome to your life. The real one. The one you were always meant to live. Welcome home.